everyone, and I want to welcome you to the Vegan Stew. How'd you like our new intro? That is music that was created for Virtual Veg Fest Live by Howard Jacobson's son, Elon. We really appreciate that, and it gives a nice little dancing vibe for the Stew crew before we start. That's what I see. I see these little heads all dancing around to the music, so they like it too. Let's say thank you to Rebel Cheese for being the sponsor of Virtual Veg Fest Live this month of February. And let's say go to virtualvegfest.com, virtualvegfestlive.com actually, and enter our wish pond, and you can win one of 6 prize packs. What are those prize packs? I wrote them down. So it's Follow Your Heart, Terra Seed, Hodo Foods, Cinnaholic, Revolution Gelato, and Fabulous. Do that, we might be adding a 7th one. So what you want to do, enter a wish pond. You can do things like subscribe to the Vegan Stew YouTube and get a lot of entries for doing that. And then at the end of the month, we pick winners, and you can be one of the 6 winners, and it gets mailed to your house. Simple as that. So remember, if you have any questions or comments during the show, you can be part of the show by putting them in a little comment box, and we tend to address all of them, unless you're spamming us, and we'll just block you. So, interesting topic tonight, intersectionality. We start with the news, we flow into our conversation. Dawn's going to lead the conversation tonight, and I can't wait to see where it goes. So let me introduce you to the Stew crew, including our newest member, Kelly Care. All right. We have Kimberly from Did You Bring the Hummus?
Hello.
We have Marla Rose from Vegan Street.
Hello.
We have Kelly from Climate Healers and the Vegan Enabler. And we have Dawn Hilton Williams from Urban Eats, and she's the Vegucator. And we've got Sangeeta with her Tilted Planet YouTube channel. And Marla, start us off.
Well, I believe it was late last week, we got the news that the new mayor of New York, Eric Adams, who follows a mainly, he eats fish, so it's not even vegetarian. But other than that, getting complicated. He's basically vegan and promotes veganism. He has announced that in New York City, there's something like 938,000 students every Friday will get a vegan meal, a free vegan meal as their lunch, which is very exciting and very cool. And, it's a great opportunity. Let's hope that things go well. And then the second little part of that is also attached to him becoming the new mayor is he announced that they're going to be opening 5 clinics in all 5 boroughs called the plant-based lifestyle medicine program to make it easier for people to learn about vegan diets, eating plant-based, creating recipes, and that sort of thing. So that's really cool. I was really happy to hear that.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, I met Mayor Adams pre-mayor, and he attended a lot of, he works very closely with Dr. Barnard and more of the whole food plant-based side of the business. And I know as African Americans, a lot of us come in on the health side. It was very encouraging to see what he was able to do in such a short period of time. He's only been mayor since January. This guy is off to the races, isn't he? I'm very excited to see what he's going to do.
Didn't he?
Oh yeah, of course he reversed his diabetes in his mom's, and he was almost blind. I mean, of course he's got a great story. I don't know that he actually ate fish. I just think people are saying that. We don't know that for sure. He just said he's primarily plant-centered. And from a health perspective, he's reversed his diseases. And I just applaud him for only in 2 months making massive changes. If every politician worked at the speed at which he works, we get a lot of stuff done.
Yes.
So I'm excited about what the next 3 and 3.75 years hold for New York City.
It's very exciting. Very, very cool. Do you guys remember your school lunches? They were pretty scary, right?
Oh yeah, it's so gross.
My school lunch, when I ate a Kit Kat and a pretzel and chocolate milk for lunch every day in middle school. That was my lunch.
Yeah, those milks, they that milk mandating thing, that should be next on the list. Ugh.
Oh, it's
So
terrible because
terrible.
Oh gosh, yes.
a lot of the kids it creates so much waste, but that's part of the whole bio,
Well, it's very racist
Yeah.
actually because of the Asian and indigenous Americans and African Americans who are lactose intolerant, which causes all kind of gastrointestinal problems, as well as promotes abnormal cell development for cancer. So they should stop making it mandatory. So again, this is exciting time for that he's actually making something changing in state legislative, in cities, which I'm hoping will lead to state legislative changes in policy.
On the East Coast, right? Because the West Coast, it tends to start there and then come to the East Coast, and then it maybe goes to the middle. So, yeah, that's awesome. So I think we're going to jump over to Kelly because what's really cool is we've gone international because Kelly's in Toronto, Canada. So yay, yay for the Stew Crew. And we just want to kind of touch on something that's very current. We're going to talk about current events, kind of blocking the border between Canada and the United States. And what's going on in Canada, Kelly?
Yeah, so I'm sure everyone, it's made international news, is the Freedom Convoy, as they call themselves, that's basically taken Ottawa, Ontario, which is, I'm based in Toronto, so it's about 4 hours from me, hostage for the past few weeks under the guise of a Freedom Convoy, and this is a really sensitive subject to me because obviously I'm an animal rights activist, and so I protest often. We block trucks. We've kind of done sort of like similar stuff, right? But this is just a whole different sort of ball game in what they're doing, right? And who they're affecting, and and especially in the messaging that is coming out of this convoy. The one of the organizers is saying how it all has to be about love and light and all this positive stuff, yet they're not thinking about the people in Ottawa who's being extremely inconvenienced, mentally tortured by the honking day and night for over 2 weeks. The diesel, exactly, and like, I'm going to call it out, our vegan community is supporting this as well, and as someone who is part of healers, like, I find it very unsettling, but more importantly, as I'm sure everyone's heard as well, is the three main organizers behind this have extreme right views, who have made comments about Islamophobic, homophobic, racism, anti-Semitism, so I understand the frustration that people are having, that this pandemic's gone on so long. And I think that a lot of really good people have just kind of just gotten really confused, just latched on out of frustration, and they're not really thinking of who they're aligning with. And at this point, I find it's really difficult to have a conversation because, it's hard to admit that, like, yeah, maybe I was aligned with the wrong people, but what's even more disturbing about this is, like, this has gone global now, right? They are not even blocking Ottawa now. They're coming to Toronto, or at least they've been talking about coming to Toronto again for a second weekend. They're blocking the Detroit Windsor Bridge. They're blocking Alberta Bridge to, I think it's North Dakota. And they're and this is like they've inflamed people around the world to be doing this. So this is definitely something that I think people should be taking very serious.
Right.
So what does it have to do? What is the vegan part? So I understand that there's some. So this is the anti-vaxxer thing we're talking about, because is that where we're coming in on vegan? Because I don't really get the vegan part.
No, I mean, for me, it's just they're just to support people who, like, there are people in this convoy who are the same truckers that we blocked to try to stop animals from going into the slaughterhouse, and now they're on their side. So it's just like, it's boggling my mind how you like that you want to align yourself with them when, like, these are the people that they don't like us. These are the people who don't like us, and now you're aligning themselves with them for, like, this cause. So it's just it's unsettling for me why so many vegans, like, I can understand, like, being sympathetic to the frustration that's going on, but to just align yourself with with this organization that it's clear they have them on like on camera, on audio, saying these very racist and Islamophobic and anti-Semitic stuff, like, so I don't understand why anyone would want to align themselves with them, especially when veganism to me is about, caring for all sentient beings, human and non-human. But I think that's where, a lot of that's a big problem in how vegans view the term vegan, I guess. And for me, it extends to non-human animals.
Right. It's a perfect segue. So I know that Helene's gonna. Do I just come in?
You can segue. I think it's really important because
yeah.
Kelly kind of touched on like kind of what her vegan why is, and that's good because
right.
That was our first show, and you weren't part of the first show. It's like I like you to kind of get that in, so that's great. And then great segue. Go Dawn.
Perfect segue. And thank you for bringing it, Kelly. And I kind of questioned you, which seemed like, why is she always trying to be mean? No, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm trying to segue. I needed a good wedge because actually this was strategic, ladies. So in audience, I knew where Kelly's viewpoint was coming from because there is such difference. There are differences in the vegan community and why we came into the movement. And today's topic is intersectionality and veganism. So when you think about intersectionality, there's like the classic definition of it. And then there's an entire sect of vegans called intersectional vegans. I mean, there's intersectional almost everything. It's trendy now. But the bottom line is it action oriented, and how deeply does it go with mainstream veganism? So I'm going to share the definition, and I'm going to ask you ladies to chime in. The definition 30 years ago the idea came into play with a college professor. She's an attorney named Kimberly Crenshaw. And she was working on a case where she needed to shed some light for an African-American woman who was doubly oppressed. And in this is where the definition came out and was adopted from the work she's still doing and did then. Intersectionality means the interconnected nature of social characterizations regarding race, class, gender, and other groups. And how the overlapping of those create discrimination, oppression, and disadvantage, additional discrimination, additional disadvantage. So just to the group, I guess, and then we'll get into what veganism, the ethical vegan, we're not talking about the intersectional vegan yet. Just how do you see intersectionality playing out in your life? I mean, does it have any impact? That's too broad a question. Let me get more narrow. So if we talk about it from a perspective of intersectionality and veganism, which means avoiding all animal exploitation, mainly for the social justice reasons of animals being victims of oppression. How do you all tie that in with the social justice reform, social justice, and how that affects veganism? Do you all tie that together? Anybody?
I can speak. Oh, all right. Yeah. Go ahead, Marla.
Okay. Marla, then Kelly.
Okay. Well, I do spend a lot of time researching these various connection issues. Like, so a lot of times the same industries, the same approaches that exploit and kill animals, exploit and kill humans. As we know, the meat industry, as cruel and brutal as it is to the animals, is basically as rapacious to its workers. People are basically gobbled up and spit out when they're injured, which is like very likely in these horrifically dangerous buildings. But there's also the fact of environmental racism. The more likely you are as a person of color to live near these polluting factories, for example. But I just was going to mention, as to what Kelly started with, last week I wrote an article that brought up the Joe Rogan controversy. And we had a lot of vegans who were pushing back on it. And a lot of vegans who are seemingly fine with this man who uses the N-word, putting aside the anti-vax nonsense. For years and years and years, he has used that word. And apparently, there are a lot of people who are fine with that. So I do feel that if we're going to be a real movement, we really need to address the elephant in the room, which is there's a lot of bigoted people in this movement. And we need to not be in denial or pretend that it doesn't exist.
Thanks, Marla. Kelly?
Yeah, Marla, I'm so glad you touched upon the slaughterhouse workers, because I protest in front of these because we have two slaughterhouses, three actually in Toronto, all within a couple blocks of one another. And that particular neighborhood typically houses lower income, and that typically is, the BIPOC community, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I see the people that work in these slaughterhouses, and they are typically, BIPOC community, right? So like you said, they don't care about their employees, they just care about the output, right? So I see this from an intersectional aspect of, like, you don't care about who is getting, injured or exploited, for your food, but for me, I see it as an extension of, we, uh, protest, like, the whole animal agriculture industry, yet there are 36 long-term boil water advisories in the First Nations in Canada, and one of them has been without clean drinking water for over 27 years, right? And like, no one's talking about this. No one's seeing all these connections, and should be extremely disturbed that how much water we're giving to animals, and we're denying our First Nations clean water.
Right.
So I see it as an extension of that as well.
I just want to say what BIPOC is for people who don't know what that is. BIPOC, the acronym is Black, Indigenous, People of Color. That's what that acronym stands for our viewers who are tuning in. And very good point. Anybody, I guess I would say, so is veganism inclusive? I guess that begs that question. How inclusive is veganism outside of inviting people in to join the mainstream? We're going to go with Kimberly.
So I was flipping through a book that I have that I bought a while ago by Afko and Silko. They're two sisters. And one of the essays from Af, she talks about when she wrote an article back in 2015, I think it was, called 100 Black Vegans. And it was just highlighting 100 Black vegans that she thought were doing really important work. The Vegan Society shared the article. And then in this essay, she includes multiple comments that she or the Vegan Society received. And of course, one of them was like, I don't care if you're black, purple, red, orange. And like, first of all, who's purple and orange? It's just such a stupid point. But what does this have to do with veganism? Who cares? Could you imagine if we made a list of 100 white vegans, people would lose their minds? Like, so I think that veganism really hasn't been inclusive. And this is from 2015. So, I mean, we're not that far removed from that. But also, if you think about the insurrection on January 6th last year, there were vegans there. There are definitely vegans in groups like that. And so I think that, we all have this lens that we approach the world and see the world through. And so if we are white middle class women, or if we are Black middle class women or whatever, we have a different view and we see things a different way. So veganism for me is going to be somewhat different than veganism for Dawn. And there's no reason to be upset about that, but we have to be able to acknowledge that it's different for us and that we're all bringing something. So having lists of 100 Black vegans that are doing amazing things is important. And the reason why we don't need a list of 100 white vegans is because we've got lists, and we have forever, of all the white people doing all the things. So we don't need that. But to call this out, I think I'm also kind of sad. And just one more comment.
Yeah,
Oatly Oatly just posted this ridiculous post last week, I think it was, where it was like patches they had on like a jean jacket, and it was like part-time breakfast time vegan, or just very like you can be vegan and only do it for breakfast. And people were losing their minds about, oh, Oatly doesn't care about vegans, blah blah blah. But Kimberly Renee, who on Instagram is her Instagram handles, it's Kimberly Renee. She has been fighting Oatly for years about slavery and the chocolate that they use, and no one commented about that. I could not believe it. People were losing their minds over this stupid patches that Oatly did, but not a single person talked about the fact that Oatly is engaged with some companies that are questionable. And she has interactions, emails back and forth that she's posted from Oatly where they have these conversations. And I just think that we need to be more mindful and not just approach veganism from the white people's point of view.
I agree. Helene and Sangeeta, just if you want to chime in, but yes, I want to come back to what Kimberly said, because we don't get a lot from Kimberly, guys. So when Kimberly talks, everybody's listening. It's like E.F. Hutton. When Kimberly talks, we want to listen. So thank you, Kimberly. That was wonderful. Sangeeta?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Sangeeta, we can hear you.
Okay, so from my interactions with vegans in India, most of them are not familiar with the word intersectionality. And so there is a lot of opportunity for me to educate them. And even whether they know the word or not, the majority of the vegans do not see the connection between the animal abuse and the patriarchy and the casteism. They do not see that. And I've been meaning to make videos on that, and hopefully I will get to that this time. But the way I have been approaching it is, I have seen like major vegan educators flatly say that we do not want to talk about casteism, or we do not want to talk about patriarchy, because we only focus on veganism. And I sometimes there have been opportunities for me to have some kind of a headway in that dialogue. Is well, do you support a husband beating their wife? And if you don't support it, then you have some kind of an intersectionality here with your veganism, that sort of thing. There is a lot of education that needs to happen, and I hope to be able to touch that topic on my channel this year.
Thanks, Sangeeta. Helene, I just want you to get something in on the particular topic that we're talking about right now.
Thank you, Dawn. I appreciate it. Vegans need to be aware that it's not just about the animals, it's about the people. And what I wrote in our group chat is, I want everyone to hear, is that this stew crew, we're here to educate the public, and you're watching us talk about these topics. But internally, we're all learning from one another, sometimes in the moment, things that we never knew. And I'll tell you, Dawn is the vegucator, but she's the educator of teaching us white women about people of color and what life is like every single day. And that is something that we needed. We didn't, I don't think we came into this knowing that. I think we all came into this feeling like we were allies. Maybe not as much as we thought we were. And I feel that's why this topic is so important, is for people to understand that it can't just be about the animals, and you can't be a KKK white nationalist and vegan. The two don't align. It doesn't make sense. The anti-vaxxers it doesn't make sense, because we're supposed to be caring about one another, and that is all inclusive of everything on the planet that we share this planet with. That's from the ants and the roaches through the birds in the sky and everything in between.
I agree completely. Kimberly, yes, I have you. I'm going to just make a quick comment. Thank you so much. I do know that we all learn from each other. I came in right before you, Kelly. No, there's somebody before. Yeah, I think right before you, I came in to the Stew Crew. But I just think it's a well-rounded group, and we actually fuss and also listen to each other because we respect each other. And I think that's a lot of the problem that we don't have. We don't respect where we're culturally. We're a group of people that respect each other's culture, and we're willing to go into an argument about it and still respect each other after the conversation happened, right? But as a mainstream vegan society, there are certain things, like Helene said, like Kimberly said, that can't even, and like Sangeeta said, and Kelly, can't even be touched in mainstream conversation of veganism. When I brought up, during the KFC thing, I brought up something about racism or food access in disproportionately impacted communities. And someone wrote in the comments, what does race have to do with veganism? So we're not in a post-racial society. We're in a racial society. And just because we had an African-American president who was wonderful, in my opinion, doesn't mean that we're post-racial now. Just because Mayor Adams is the mayor. We've had a Black mayor of New York before. It matters about how we interact and understand with each other, and how we bring our unique perspectives to veganism. Because I tell you, if we could get a little more familiar, we'd all be better educators out in the community. Like when you go to a Black community and you talking about smoothies and stuff, and nobody wants their smoothies, Brussels sprouts. Now, I love them, but I'm a chef and a foodie. But we've got to train each other on how to get other people who don't have food access, who have needs, to understand their oppression and what that looks like. And if you don't understand how that oppression is different than yours as a woman, and there's a Black woman with 3 kids and single mom in the neighborhood, and she can't even get with what you're talking about with artichokes, we just have to teach each other a little better. So how do we do that? How do we become more action oriented as a movement with regard to that? Social, those matters. Oh, Marla? No, Kimberly's next. Kimberly, then Marla.
I was kind of responding to Helene, but now I guess it also is kind of in response to what you just asked, John. So I was going to say that we are very lucky, and I think we're all very thankful that we have you, Dawn, and that you have been willing to educate us and have these open conversations. But I also feel like it's very important that we do our own work, and that we aren't putting it on you or any, by POC person that we happen to know to get more information. So if someone says that word hurts me because of this, I don't know that it's necessarily appropriate to then be like, why? Tell me what happened that makes that word hurt you. I think then it becomes thank you, and then you do kind of your own research too. So I do appreciate everything that you bring to us, but I also just wanted for the rest of us to kind of remember that it isn't Dawn's job, and we shouldn't expect that. And we can take that, generally as a whole. I don't know, Dawn, if you want it to be your job.
Yeah,
but
I want to chime in. I want to chime in there, and I have my spoon. I'm gonna chime in there because I think because it is also my job to be my brother's keeper. I am my brother's keeper always. So it is. I'm telling you, it's very tiring to continue to repeat the same thing and for people to give you pushback. But it's my job. It's a part of. If we're going to be an inclusive community, that's the part of the work. When I ask you certain things, I'm going to expect answers. Of course, you go still do the work. You don't even know where to look. Like you may not know where to look, and you ask me a question about like a certain word, and then you're like, "Where did the roots of that come from?" I'm happy to tell you where to go look. I'll tell you a little summary, and then. But I think that's the communication is a problem. People feel like if you say something wrong to an African American or to an Indian woman or someone of Indian descent, that or Jewish descent, that you can't say anything else to them. Now you have to be really quiet and careful. No, talk to them so that they can teach you, so that you can be better for the person that says it around you next. I think it's our job in this movement to be more compassionate in those areas and to be more instructive. And it is tiring, but it's the job. We signed up for this job as brothers keepers. That's what I see it. But Marla.
Well, a couple of things. One is I do think that there are people who genuinely feel afraid of making mistakes, and being called out or being publicly chastised. The more, and that I think this is not like the Butter Up Dawn episode, but I do think.
No, it's not. No, because I'm crazy, y'all.
It's
you
vegan
tune in. I get very crazy.
Right. But but the point I was going to make is just that I think you do a really admirable job of being direct and honest, but not making it a personal kind of, this is saying something bad about you that you don't know this by now. You know what I mean? There are a lot of people who become afraid to make mistakes because they've stepped in it here or there. For myself, I've done it so many times that I'm just like, oops, okay, remember that. But the other thing I was going to mention is without getting too much into it, I grew up in a kind of a messed up household. So I'm familiar with when communities try to bury stuff, when they try to say, let's put on a happy face. Let's pretend that let's sweep it under the rug. And that was coming up a lot a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, with revelations that women, particularly at like HSUS, were being sexually harassed, were not being able to move through the up the ladder, and other animal rights organizations. There was this kind of pervasive dick click. But if you talked about it, you were called a hater. You were called jealous. You were called, you're a troublemaker. You're doing this or that. The point is, we need to be able to, honestly, and, knowing that we're on the right side of history, we need to be able to call out when we see oppression happening within our ranks as well. So I do think that the more we can, as individuals, model that, when we see someone being a sexist POS, when we see, anti-vax garbage, we need to stick up, stand up for it. So anyway,
that's a good point. How do we do that? So we've gotten the message real clear about no exploitation of animals. And we're getting a lot of pushback as a mainstream organization, a mainstream movement. It's not an organization, it's movement, right? We get a lot of pushback when you talk about social justice, gender, LGBTQ, women, African American, BIPOC. You're getting pushback. How do we? Again, we're almost a blockbuster when it comes to this. I keep mentioning blockbuster videos, and I've done that in a couple of segments. How do we get veganism to change internally so we're more inclusive, not just in saying, hey, people come in, hey, different people come in. This is what we do. How do we get it to change? What do we do? What one thing do you think we could do as a movement that could really get us going in embracing one another the right way? Kelly. I got Kelly first, then I have Helene.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, first thing I think we need to do is stop worshiping the hot white men as we do in the community. And I think we need to give the platform to the hip-hop community, and not as like a way of just like tokenizing to say, oh yeah, well, we gave a platform to like one Black speaker for this conference, and therefore we did our job. It's
right.
Amplifying and stepping back and letting them have the stage for a while. And not just one time, so you can say you did it, so then you can pretend that you're not, that racist or whatever, but really understand, that, if you want more people to come into the movement, you have to give the space to the people that you want into the movement. Otherwise, people aren't going to identify with you. They're not going to relate to you. And our message is going to be lost on them. And then we're not going to grow as a movement.
Helene. Thank you, Kelly. Helene.
I don't have a lot of words because it's such a massive undertaking to basically take humans and change their thinking and their wiring to be decent human beings and to recognize people for who and what they are, where they're at. But I want to tell a story. I doing the Veg Fest for 8 years now. In 2016, it was about 2 weeks before the festival, and I got a message from a woman of color in my community. And me being me, she was saying, you need more diversity in your speakers. And I was like, 2 weeks before the event I'm frazzled. I'm pretty busy. If you do Veg Fest, you know, like 2 weeks is like, I'm like all over the place, especially into the early years. And I was like, what do you mean diversity? We have like topics on this, we have topics on that. Right, Marla. and even in that conversation, we went back and forth and it got pretty heated because I honestly did not understand.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then the light bulb went off and I went, oh. And I looked at my lineup and it wasn't very diverse. So I apologized. I went back and I was like, I get it now. And from that moment in time, if you look at our education from 2017 on, Wilmington is a great example. You know how white Wilmington is? I didn't know how white Wilmington was until I put Corinne Sutton, Gray, Chef Nikki, Dr. Judy Brangman in front of them for my education day. Mm-hmm. They spoke to a room of white people with maybe one person of color outside of themselves. And I didn't understand until someone told me how white Wilmington was. And here I am bringing this incredible. Actually, it wasn't diverse because it was one white man and a whole bunch of people of color who were absolutely incredible to have. They were amazing, dynamic. But I learned my lesson.
Right.
And part of it, the comeback to that, and this is the sad part. The hard part and the sad part of it is, well, I have a huge number of people that are white that I can pick to bring to educate who are vegan. I don't have as many people who are diverse. That's not true. You just have to want to have the different people come to your festival, because what happened after that, I don't know if I got on a list. I don't know what happened, but after 2017, I started getting emails left and right from people all over the country that are not white who want to come and speak at the festivals. It just kind of started, and it wasn't like I was looking for it. It started filling in my inbox, and that's, it's important. I didn't even think about it. I honestly didn't think about it until it was put in my face and I recognized and made the changes. But I'm not like everybody else. I'm unique in the sense that I will listen. Mm-hmm. I will look at the errors in my ways and I'll work on making those changes. That's not normal human behavior.
No, but in order for us to have a vegan movement at all, and for the rate at which veganism has grown, there are a lot of unique people that have the same sentiment, that we just need to make sure that they understand to be open and communicative and to not just the animal part.
Yep.
But that's the important part, because if you come in under health, you're going to save animals by default, even if that's not your main stick. Right. If you come in under environment, you're going to help the environment, you're going to help the health, you're going to help, everything is all working together in tandem. But we have to respect all the varying parts that intersect, all the intersecting parts of veganism. We have to, but we're not, the mainstream veganism needs to change. I think the definition needs to be changed. We first need to change the definition, in my opinion. The definition of veganism should be expanded to the main definition, not the one, the exclusivity, that one, not the one that has to do with intersectionality, because I think that will get people to thinking more about it, and it'll make people of BIPOC people feel included. We don't feel included. Mm-hmm. We don't. We make ourselves fit because we're used to making ourselves fit. That's why we do that. But and we make our own. We get very creative. But like Kelly said, representation is one part of it, but the action-oriented part is another part. The action that you took, Helene, you know, on your own volition, you didn't have to make a change. You could just add one person. You added like 10. You know, I do my event. It's all brown. So, well, except for one or two, maybe I mix it up. But because I know there's a lack of that attention, I go overboard, and I can do that. We all can make those decisions in our respective areas because all of us have businesses. All of us can do that, but we need to just be better at meeting those people and finding those people on social media. So how do we meet them? How do we connect? And then how do we take representation to action? How do we go to the next step? Like Helene did. We're going to go with Marla.
Oh, I was just going to say, I feel like part of the whole puzzle is genuinely just wanting to do better and not it being ego derived, you know, because then you're going to be defensive if it's like, you know, but the other thing I was going to say, and there's so many things being said that I've kind of lost track of what it was, but keep your interests out, you know, informed about other things that are not necessarily animal rights. I mean, keep reading and learning about different topics that flow in and out. And then the last thing, and I'm working on this constantly, it's not necessarily easy because I think we get into our habits and our routines, is we need to not through tokenism, but through genuine, you know, outreach in our personal lives, expand beyond the people who look like us and people who have shared similar experiences to us. So I need to be adding, you know, to my life, more people who are like, for example, disabled, more people of color. And I think that naturally would flow out into my activism and into an expanded worldview of veganism. If I think that, you know, like I was saying, I just think that we all just there needs to be some intentionality behind who we're surrounding ourselves with, you know? I don't know if that makes sense.
That's true, because then you get to have those conversations that you wouldn't otherwise have. Right. So I'm sorry. Yeah, the conversations are needed. So Sangeeta?
Yeah, so I have a genuine question here, and maybe Dawn, you can educate me here. So people are at different stages of whether it is human rights or it is animal rights, and I feel like I know how if somebody is vegan and that person is not aware of its connection with human rights, I know how to approach that. But I don't know how to approach the other way around. Like if I have a friend who is very sympathetic to Black Lives Matter, but they don't see any merits of veganism at all, how do I help them make that connection without ever suggesting or without suggesting that the Black lives and animal lives somehow are at the same level? You know, and I apologize, I might be using the wrong.
That's a very good point. That's an excellent point. So, but I think that's an excellent point. So what Sangeeta was essentially saying, and what she said clearly was, when you're empathetic and sympathetic toward a cause like Black Lives Matter, and then you're very, you know, concerned about the planet, animals, and health, and you know the person you're talking to isn't practicing in those ways veganism, how do you impress upon those people the value of that veganism and the only way to do that is when you have to find another time. If someone is African American and talking to you about George Floyd or someone that just got, you know, something terrible, well, there's always something happening, but if there's something, it's got to be between happenings, right? And if you get that opportunity in that window of conversation, bring them something delicious, and then break bread and say, yeah, this is vegan. I mean, it can't be right in the midst of that. And if that's the only time you see them because something's happened and BLM has come up, then find a way to bring something to, I'm telling you, one way to influence people, African Americans culturally, and a lot of other cultures, food is a thing. Food is a thing of celebration. It was a break on the plantation. You can go back hundreds of years, how important and how celebratory food is to people of color. So if you just break some bread and then they just ask you what's in that, that'll start the conversation rolling. You just can't associate it directly with BLM because you don't know who that is, and it could be a slippery slope. So make it about a separate moment to get to know them better and be a listener for them, and then bring them some food. I'm telling you, food is the trick. Food is the trick. So Kelly's next. Thank you, Sandy.
Yeah,
That was great.
Thanks, Donna. I totally want to say you're absolutely right. And I have done this for the climate community, the non-vegan climate community, which, going to, they had like a climate film festival. And we would just show up with food because usually they're not heavily funded, and a lot of, they try to feed the people who come and it's out of their pockets. So it's usually some chips and pop, which, so we would just come, we'd bring some food, we set it down, people would eat it, they would go, where did this come from, what is this? And then when you're coming without an agenda, they're much more willing to have a conversation with you, and then you can start talking about, in this case, how climate is related to animal agriculture and this and that, so I completely agree with what you said, Dawn, about bringing food. Food is a really good conversation.
Food's the ultimate icebreaker.
Yes.
Food.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Marla. What's up?
I was gonna say one last little
not the ice food.
Yeah.
Huh?
Don't serve someone ice and say, look, this is vegan.
Yeah, not that.
I was just gonna say another, and I think this has been touched upon, especially by you, Dawn. The sensitivity of listening to people. I think a lot of times vegans, especially those who are not oriented to listening well, really hold tight to these ideas. I'm gonna use the slavery metaphor. I'm gonna use the Holocaust. I'm gonna say this and say that. These are nuanced conversations you can have later once you've gained someone's trust. Maybe. Really, it's very, it depends a lot. But I do feel like a lot of sort of the more in your face, activists really cling to that, despite the fact that it turns off so many people, and it does such a disservice to the animals when you have closed off communication by insisting on using terms that are offensive to people. So anyway, that's my main point. It's just like listening has to be integral to this.
So Helene,
I couldn't agree with you.
Thing.
I know my scissor. I couldn't agree more, Marla. It's such a valiant point, because in my Facebook memories is a string from, I think, 2012, and it was, I guess it maybe 2011. I'm not sure, because I feel like it was pre-vegan for me, but maybe it wasn't. But it was a conversation about comparing the Holocaust to veganism. And as a Jew, I took offense. I just said, my ancestors, they died in the Holocaust, and you're comparing animals to that. Now I get it, because I've used an analogy for ethical choices, is in the cows going into the slaughterhouse as the Jews walked into the gas chambers for effect, because the cows are walking into what they think is near death or death, because the blood is running along the path besides them, and they can sense that nothing good is going to happen. Whereas the Jews walked into the showers, not knowing if they were going to be showered or gassed, with that unknown. But they had that unknown. So I have made that comparison. However, I take offense to using the Holocaust like Aspie does. The big names have taken something that you just don't touch. There are just certain things you just don't make analogies of. Slavery is another one. Come
Mhm.
on. You just don't do it. I get it's for effect. We could have made this show all about that. We could have made this show
Mhm.
into questions and done like Fox News does and been and just exploitive and explosive. Do you know? All questions for people. We
Mhm.
we we could have done that. But that's not who we want to reach. That's not how we want to reach people, because we want to reach people with actual truth as opposed to questions that lead to answers that are not really true. So it's really important to receive information as well as you're giving it. And I think that's part of when you get explosive, it makes it difficult. And as we touched on in our planning meeting, when your button is pushed, it's really hard to go, "Oh, yeah, my button's pushed. All right, maybe I have to think about this for a moment before I speak and say something back to the person who's pushed my buttons. And maybe let me think about my rational answer that I'm going to say to them because I'm steaming freaking mad at the moment because my button's been pushed." It's just not in human nature to do that. But
Mhm.
if you could stop, just pause. If you're especially on the computer, your keyboard warrior, just stop. Just pause for a moment, reread, go take a break, drink a cup of coffee, reevaluate how you feel, do some research, like look stuff up, ask questions. We have all said publicly, and Kelly, I guess I'll include you in this. But we will, if you want to learn about veganism, any asset, a factor of it, that you can reach out to any of us at any time, and we will help you. See Kelly shaking her head. That's the Vegucator. That's why Don was like, no, 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 ask me. And yes, because we want to facilitate change. We want to make a difference. We want to help you. We want to be open, the warm comforting space that you can come to and not have to worry about the stupid questions that you think you're asking. Potentially stupid, I put in quotes, because we we've been there. We've been you most likely. So that means that we're able to help you or steer you in a direction that makes sense. And that's, going back to your point, Dawn, of like, how do we make a difference? How do we get the community to make change?
Mhm.
I honestly don't know how to do that because it's like changing society, changing the
Mhm.
healthcare system, changing our education system, changing our social security system, changing. There's so many places where you need to start that I guess what each of our little boxes on the screen, each of us has that ability to plant the seeds and to educate and make the differences within our 6 boxes on the screen. And we all reach a lot of people. And when we reach those people, we can make the changes or help to facilitate change or do something for the positive, because that's why we're here. And everybody has their box. Not You don't have to go live to have your box. If you're in this world, you have your box, you have your platform. Use it to the best of your ability.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Thank you for sharing that, Helene. I wanted to go back to saying, where do we start? The reason I want to dig in a little bit more, because this is on intersectionality and the overlapping things that happen within that, with the double and triple oppression, how deep this thing goes. I think that I don't think it's that hard. I think it's just one person, like you said, everybody's got their individual box, just one person doing something. So I think we need to be a better alliance and teach one another so we're better teachers comprehensively. And if each group of associates, just when we have a vegan potluck, instead of sitting there talking about how good the food is, we need to have an agenda. You know, when we get out of the COVID, thing, and when that not get out of it, but when we adjust to the era that we're
endemic,
in,
right?
when we adjust to the era that we're in, we need to be able to go back to those and be a little more strategic in inviting people. Have topics that that are embraceable, on the agenda, and they don't have to, and ask, and again. So I don't think we need a lot of people. It is a large thing. but it's not. But so was veganism when we're only two of them. You know, and now we have hundreds of thousands of items in grocery stores. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, the food part of it. So food is what people love the most. I would say when you're talking about communities, you know, start with a plate, and then start with a conversation after that, because the easiest way to talk is when you're breaking bread. It's less confrontational, and it doesn't feel funny. Again, we just need to be aware that if you're talking to a black man, he's 5 times more likely to go to jail than a white man. You're talking to an African American, the median income for a white family is 100,000, which sounds high, but the average median income for a black family is 17,000. These disparities, if you hear them and they sound like crazy, and you get that trust, understand that there's a trust that happened for those words to even come out, and see where what you need to do at that time, listen, or not, and then bring veganism in on the plate and try to help to take care of the social injustices. For me, social injustice is always a thing, because food access, people should be able to get a can of beans and a decent vegetable and a piece of fruit, so that people can have equitable chances of dying from regular death, you know? So I just think it's just the work that we all have to do. But I don't think it's that hard. I think we're doing it here. I think intersectionality looks like this room. And listen, we argue, guys, sometimes. But people that don't know us, we argue in text and stuff like that, and in long threads. But we're committed to changing things and being different for veganism and for each other as a community. Because we're all one. Until we can get to we're all one community, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. So I just wanted to circle back on how, again, we've already talked about how we can be more inclusive. A lot of good tips have come up on how to do that, being better listeners, being better communicators, knowing when to say what, bring some food, put yourself in spaces you normally wouldn't be in, just to have those conversations in a lunchroom, in the lunch break. Go to the lunch break if you're in an office. There are just so many little things that you can do. All the little things is why veganism is popular now. Veganism just didn't start. I mean, we wouldn't go technical. It was really in Africa over there. Nobody was eating meat back, before slavery. But if you want to get the American veganism, when that came up, as any of you would say, it was very different 30 years ago.
Right.
Go ahead, Marla. So Marla, then Kelly.
I just mainly think, when we think about it in a very broad, or I guess a very specific way, how do we make the world go vegan? Is very overwhelming, because that's just not how it happens.
No.
What we do is we show up every day as our best selves, as our most honest selves, as humble people, as helpful people, as creative, resourceful people, as people who want to help and to want to learn ourselves. So I think that's the main thing. And also, we support good other vegans. We like their posts that are drawing attention to human rights abuses. We share their the articles that they write that draw attention to that or that they share. So I think really drawing a line in the sand and aligning yourself with the best is, I mean, by the best, I mean the people who are integrated, who are, have an anti-racism
platform.
Yeah. So I think that's the main thing, is you just keep showing up and showing up and showing up every day. I'm like, vegan for 27 years now, and I'm not sick of it yet. Like every day, I feel so grateful I get to be vegan. So
I'm gonna leave the last word with Kelly, but I wanted to say that it really inspires me when you guys like my post. I tell you, I really pay attention to that, because it means that you acknowledge me and because it's usually about something, especially in Black History Month. So I appreciate you guys for doing that. So little things like that make a huge difference for people of color. I can tell you that. But Kelly, you got the last word, Miss New Lady.
Thanks, Don. And I'm really actually just very quickly, I wanted to say because we just became Facebook friends today because I'm
Yeah,
new
yeah.
to the Vegan Stew, and I saw one of your posts where you were talking about the person who was the inventor of was it the heater?
Right. The security system or the heater security
Yeah,
system.
yes, that's right. Yeah, and I was like,
Mhm.
oh, that's amazing. I was going to write a comment saying like, can you send me to a website to like tell me more about BIPOC inventors? I went, no, I can I can educate, like I can find that myself, right? That's laziness, So yeah, but what I was gonna say for me, oops, sorry, is when it comes to how you can support with your dollar, I think
Right.
supporting these businesses, especially the food businesses, I'm in Toronto. There's a lot of really posh vegan restaurants that aren't even run by vegans. They're opportunists, who
Mm.
are looking at veganism as being trendy, and their food is overpriced and all this. And I make a point of trying to support, businesses that are run by small families,
Mm-hmm.
who need our money much more than these big ones that have large corporations behind this trendy restaurant, right?
And they're
So
selling animals.
who run a vegan
Mhm.
restaurant, but then they have other vegan, like you don't know. I know because I research, but they have other restaurants that exactly are not vegan and are selling good
Right.
parts. Exactly.
Well, Helene, take us out, ma'am. Great speaking today. We could talk another whole long time on this, but I mean, I think we kind of made the points.
No, thank you. Thank you, ladies. This was a great show. As Steven said, it's by far the best episode yet. So thank you, Steven. That's my Steven. All right, let me close this out. Here we go. Bye, everybody. Oops, they just remove. So everyone, thank you once again for watching The Vegan Stew. There is one thing that, thank you, Susan. Awesome conversation. Oops, sorry. There we go. Thank you. Thank you. There is one thing that Dawn did share with me today that I shared with the Stew crew that I want to share with all of you as well. And it's a TED Talk that made me cry. And I'm putting it in the comments so you can watch it as well. It's less than 20 minutes of your time, and it is a valuable 20 minutes to take. So please click that link when you have a moment. Like now would be great. And watch that because the Vegucator educated and it's important. So you need to know those names and say them out loud. All right. Thank you to Rebel Cheese for sponsoring our virtual Veg Fest live talks this month for the month of February. Wishing everybody a happy Valentine's Day, together, alone, whatever, whomever, dogs, cats, grandma, grandpa, whoever it is, or don't celebrate it all and just, enjoy a nice meal, whatever you have to do. Be kind to one another. Wear a mask if you don't want to get COVID or infect other people. Clearly, I seem to be losing my voice. Excuse me. And go to virtualvegfestlive.com and enter our Wishbone contest. Hit the contest tab and to win the 6 prize packs, which is pretty neat. Nobody else gives away prizes monthly. And we got more stuff coming. So we will be back next week with a topic for episode 19. I don't know what the topic is because I didn't check, but I'm sure it'll be something that will be fun to watch and hopefully you'll be a part of it too. So have a great week. Be safe, be kind, and we'll see you soon. Bye. Oh, subscribe. Don't forget, go to YouTube, hit subscribe, hit the notification button. That would really be great. All right.